Dr. Bismeen Jadoon. She is a British Menopause Society member specialist. She is a postnatal lead at Ashford and St. Peter Hospital. As a certified specialist with the British Menopause Society, she runs a complex menopausal clinic and Ashford and St. Peter Hospital in NHS Trust. Dr. Jadoon's works the span of the globe from NHS research to collaborate with the World Health Organization on the Quality Improvement Project. She will shed some light on the critical role of the nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mental well-being of the woman in improving the quality of life. Please, Dr. Jadoon.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Zaya, for such a generous introduction. First of all, I'm so thankful to Professor Dr. Saida Batul and the remarkable organizing committee, plus the OBS Pharma for the kind invitation to share my experience on the World Menopause Day. For me, this day is important for two reasons. Number one, being a menopausal specialist, I think platforms like this is really meaningful, and this is to bring the menopause discussion into public, to demystify menopause discussion. And spaces like that give opportunity for us to remove the stigma and the taboo which is attached with menopause. So congratulations for arranging such a remarkable day. And the second reason is that I'm so lucky to be here at this side of the world because I work in UK. And I think it's a great opportunity where we can all learn from each other, share experiences, discuss what kind of challenges we have when we try and manage menopause for women. And then we can collaborate with each other in terms of, education, training, and research. And this is something I'm really looking forward to for today's program. So I had various ideas, for today's presentation, but Madam suggested that I should talk about lifestyle medicine, and I think very rightly so, because when we talk about management around menopause, it's always a holistic approach, and we should always start from lifestyle modification. In normal days, I would probably be celebrating this day back in my hospital in NHS. This is just the picture from last year. We had a remarkable day when we celebrated World Menopause Day. The lady who is standing next to me, she's an amazing lady, and she's in menopausal lead in NHS England. So we invited her, and she gave us a wonderful presentation on how to support NHS employees during their menopause and perimenopausal journey, because I believe that we should always start from the place that we are working. So our hospital has about 5,000 employees, and 75% of them are women. And she gives us such a nice framework, and after that we develop menopausal guidance and policy for our employees, and we're also doing menopausal cafes, which we are doing quarterly a year. That's an online kind of initiative where all the NHS employees, they can join online. We invite different speakers and they talk about various aspects of menopause. And this is something I want to sort of bring here with the collaboration in Pakistan. So let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes before I go on to lifestyle modification to understand the menopause in South Asian population. We have very distinctive, when I was going through the literature search, and there are lots of studies, and what I found out that we have very distinctive characteristic of menopause in our women. And the top is the earlier onset. So in UK, we know that average age of menopause is kind of 51, 52, whereas in our population, in South Asian population, especially in Pakistan, the mean age of menopause is, is about 47 to 48 years. So you can, and the incidence of premature ovarian insufficiency is also quite higher as compared to the global average, which is 3.7%. And this is according to the recent systematic review, which was done looking at the prevalence of premature ovarian failure. So you can imagine the exposure of lack of estrogen in our women is so long, and therefore the risks to the cardiovascular risks and the risk to bones. And then there are some social and some cultural factors that shapes the menopausal experience of women in South Asian population. And then we have challenges like nutritional deficiencies and limited resources and lack of education and environmental stresses. So this just makes the whole menopausal journey quite complex in South Asian population. And we have to keep that in mind whenever we are going to introduce some interventions.
Yeah, no.
As I mentioned in my last slide, so we not only differ from Western population in terms of the onset of menopausal age, there's also a difference in terms of prevalence of symptoms. So when I see women in my clinic back in UK, the sort of most common symptoms is hot flushes and night sweats and cognitive dysfunction, whereas in our population, it's more of a physical symptom. So, for example, fatigue, lack of energy, tiredness, bone pains. And surprisingly, the most commonly reported symptom, according to one of the studies, is low backache. And I would really like to hear from you as to what's your experience when you see women in the clinic. I'm not surprised to see the sexual dysfunction, which is the most under-discussed kind of a topic in our settings. And it's, again, because of the stigma attached to this issue. I would like to just throw a light very briefly on psychological burden of menopause. And according to the studies, when I was looking through the literature, we have much higher score of anxiety and depression and stress because of the menopausal symptoms. And the reason I want to include this slide in my presentation is because when we talk about holistic approach, it's not just about treating menopausal symptoms with pharmacological intervention, i.e. HRT, or alternative options. It's about lifestyle modification as well, and emotional and mental well-being is also important, as well as the physical symptom treatment. I was looking into that what could be the modifiable lifestyle factors, which is very specific to our women. And the studies have highlighted 4 important kind of lifestyle factors. So starting off with BMI, or the weight, which is also responsible for premature ovarian insufficiency, lack of physical activity with no surprise, low literacy levels, and then nutritional deficiency and dietary challenges. And the reason it's important to look at these factors, which are very specific to our population, is because we need to tailor all those interventions that are recommended by International Menopausal Society or British Menopausal Society according to the challenges that we have. So I have worked with the WHO for 6 years and on a project on women's health. And my experience was that no matter how remarkable the interventions are, or the guidelines or the protocol are, unless you tailor them or you contextualize them according to the setting where you are, they won't be fruitful. So this is a very important point, and that's why I wanted to see that what are the lifestyle factors which are specific to our population. So this is just a screenshot of the lovely infographic from International Menopausal Society. So this year theme from them for the World Menopause Day is a lifestyle medicine, and it has, I really like this picture because it gives us hope. It is very comprehensive, and there are 6 elements of lifestyle modification, and it's like a postcard, so you can send it to your friends as well on this day. Apart from all this postcard, if you go onto IMS website, so they have also published very nice fact sheets, and there are some toolkits for all of these 6 domains. They are in English language, but I'm sure it can be translated in different languages. And one of the best things is that the lifestyle modification is kind of a thing. There's so much information online about these domains. And sometimes it can be really confusing as to which one is to go for. But what IMS has done is that it has put evidence-based interventions or evidence-based recommendations for each of these domains so that we don't have to look for this information anywhere else. So that's a really remarkable thing that IMS has done this time. So what I'm going to do is just touch each domain, because I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a gym trainer, I'm just a clinician. But what I'll do is I'll just very briefly touch on these domains. Healthy diet. What is a healthy diet? Any diet which is nutritionally adequate, which is culturally acceptable, affordable, and environmentally friendly or sustainable should be a healthy diet. Now, there is a randomized control trial which was done looking at looking at the Mediterranean diet in terms of helping with menopausal symptoms. And that systematic review has shown that Mediterranean diet is the one which helps to alleviate the symptoms of menopause. This is another infographic from IMS, and again, as I said, they just put evidence-based intervention. So Mediterranean diet, I've already mentioned. It's a very simple diet, and I'm sure in Pakistan, all of these things, all of these ingredients are readily available. I'm not sure how affordable is that, and I'm very keen to learn from you that how things are here. Vegetarian diet and a DASH diet, which is a new thing, which is relatively a new thing. It's a low-salt diet. And then intermittent fasting shouldn't be a problem for us because we do fast in Ramadan quite oftenly, and this is the easiest way to lose weight or to keep calories. Just a very simple plate of a Mediterranean diet. You can obviously replace fish with a white meat or chicken to add protein. And I think if I can give one message here with regards to the diet, if you start replacing your carbohydrate with protein during your perimenopause or menopause, you would be surprised to see that what kind of changes it'll do in terms of your weight. So the nutritionists really highly recommend the protein diet as compared to the carbohydrate diet. So some of the dietary challenges that we have, I think we are lucky in Pakistan that we have seasonal fruits and vegetable. It's not like in UK where we get things from storage and they are not fresh. So try and get the fresh vegetables and fruits, lots of yogurts, lots of milk, paneer. These are excellent source of calcium and therefore very good for osteoporosis and for bone health. Physical activity. As we have seen, the physical activity is because of the sedentary lifestyle. Now, there is a misconception here that when we talk to women in this part of the world, then they say, well, we are doing work all day. You know, we are standing in the kitchen, we are busy with the children, but trust me and honestly, this is not the exercise that you want to do. You rather feel more tired after this. What we are looking for is, when we talk about physical activity, is the mixture of aerobic exercises, the weight lifting exercises or weight bearing exercises, and then some exercises with regards to mindfulness. So the common question when I see women, they come to my clinic and they say, what kind of exercise I do? So what I tell them is the one that you enjoy and the other that you can sustain and you can do it regularly. But and there are different kind of apps. I'm sure you can download them from Google Play or from App Store, and you can have lots of information from there. Well, when we look at the IMS website, so this is an evidence-based intervention as to what kind of exercises. So in a very, very simple way, I divide exercises into 3 things, and I do myself as well. I'm a gym person. So you need to do an exercise 30 minutes every day that increase your heart rate. Okay, so whether it is a brisk walk that you enjoy, running, jogging, swimming, or just running on the treadmill. So whatever you do, it's a 30 minutes of exercise that increases your heart rates every day. And then you can introduce 2 to 3 times a week what we call the weight-bearing exercises. And that is so important in menopause and perimenopause periods, because what happens is that your lean muscle mass goes down. Okay, and your metabolic rate goes down. Well, we keep on eating the same rate, and then we wonder why why we are not keeping control on our weight. So introduce 2 to 3 times weight-bearing exercise. So by weight-bearing exercise, I know the challenge is that a lot of women said we can't go to gym because of the time factor or whatever. Just buy simple weights, 2 kg, 3 kg, some dumbbells at home. And this is something I recently started with my mom, who is in mid-60s, and she was laughing at me and she said, do you really want me to lift weight at this age? And I said, yes, Mom, I really want you to lift weight. Because what it does is it makes your muscle strong, and when your muscle is strong, then it can support your joints better. And that is what you need during menopause and perimenopause. So these are the aerobic exercise, the weight-bearing exercise, and then obviously the hormone replacement therapy, or you can do the combination of that. So if you look at the evidence, if you look at the evidence, then according to the American Heart Association and International Menopausal Society, it's the same thing. So 150 minutes, which will be 30 minutes a day for the whole week, along with the weight-bearing exercises. So that's just something very, very simple that you can start introducing. Mental well-being, I could not stress more onto mental well-being apart from the physical activity. I think I feel that emotional struggle is often faced in silence. And a lot of us think that this is a luxury, and it should not be the case. It should be the necessity. And therefore, the mental well-being is more important, if not then, as compared to the physical activity. How can you improve the mental well-being during menopause and perimenopause? It's very difficult because every woman has a unique journey when they go through menopause, and they have different things that they like, they have different passion. What I normally tell them in my clinic is that just find some time or an activity that you are passionate about that brings your focus to a certain point, that takes all the distractions away from your brain, and that keeps you calm. So tell me what it is. Whether it is you love to listen to music, whether you want to get up at night and do tahajjud, whether you do tasbih, whether you do namaz, whether you read Quran. So 10, 20 minutes every day, even some deep breathing exercise, if you start doing that, that will improve your mental well-being during this transition. So there is no hard and fast rule as to what you need to do. And similarly, there is meditation, there is yoga. So anything you can pick and choose that will bring your focus to a point where you can reflect on yourself. And then cognitive behavior therapy. So I really want to know how CBT is done in Pakistan. Because it is quite a thing that we recommend both for insomnia and mental well-being in UK. And the way CBT works is that it kind of reframe your negative thoughts, and it kind of flourish your the positive thoughts or the gratitude so that you feel more in control with regards to your symptoms. So I see a lot of women who do not want to take HRT or who cannot take HRT, and these are the recommendations that we give them. And they're restorative sleep, insomnia is a big problem, and I really am keen to know that how it is in Pakistan, because in UK it is a big problem, and I did suffer myself with insomnia before I was into gym and all that. By not sleeping, by good sleep, I don't mean how many hours you are spending in bed. It's about restorative sleep. That is a sleep you wake up and you feel fresh and energetic and in good mood. So there are two types of problem with sleep. First of all, either you can't get into sleep, so the induction time is quite long, or you wake up suddenly at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the night and you can't get back to sleep. So the evidence suggests that if you are waking up in the night suddenly and you can't go back, then it's mainly because of the insulin metabolism, because of the hypoglycemia that you get in the night during the perimenopause and menopause. And therefore it is very important for you to have some healthy protein-based diet rather than refined sugar or carbohydrates, because then that can give you hypoglycemia right in the middle of the night. If you can't get into sleep, taking a longer time, then it's all about sleep hygiene. So making sure, less gadget time, you need to have a dark and quiet place, read a book, and then make a routine as to what time you need to go to bed. And the studies have shown that sleep also improves the cognitive functions and metabolic function. It's very important for cardiovascular risk. Healthy relationships. I think it's not so much of a problem in Pakistan because we have a very kind of good social and family support here. It's more of a problem in UK where everyone's busy and we don't have family around and there's no kind of a family structure as in Pakistan. So healthy relationship, going out with friends, doing something, having quality in relationship rather than too many people around you would also help. So this is one of the important domain as well. So this is just my second last slide. So what is important? Empowering women through lifestyle modification. Now we have evidence-based information from International Society in BMS. What we need to do is to make a holistic interventions. We need to tailor it according to our culture, according to our setting, and we need to make collaboration and networking with other societies, with other people who are working towards the same mission. Call for action. I think this is a great day to show that education, and that's the whole purpose of this, to educate ourselves, to educate our women, to educate people in our family, and to provide training. So this is something I'm really looking forward to in future with collaboration with Pakistan Menopause Society and International Menopause Society, so that we can exchange information, we can do training. A lot of clinicians back in UK, they don't feel well equipped to prescribe HRT or to advise women. And this is the need even in this part of the world as well, that we need to equip our doctors, our clinicians, so that they can confidently prescribe HRT and safely prescribe HRT to women. And then obviously the government and the policy focus on that. I think that's about it. Yes, and the last is just to finish my presentation with a bit of laughter, because I think and I believe that if we don't laugh together, we are definitely missing out the big thing in life. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.